said one day, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But if a man doesn't have a job or an income, he has neither life nor liberty and the possibility for the pursuit of happiness. He merely exists. Estimated that we spend $322,000 for each enemy we kill in Vietnam, while we spend in the so-called war on poverty in America only about $53 for each person classified as poor. The promises of the Great Society have been shot down on the battlefield of Vietnam, making the poor, white and Negro, bear the heaviest burdens both at the front and at home. The other thing I want you to understand is this, that it didn't cost the nation one penny to integrate lunch counters. It didn't cost the nation one penny to guarantee the right to vote. But now we are dealing with issues that cannot be solved without the nation spending billions of dollars and undergoing a radical redistribution of economic power. Yeah.
Hello, my friends. Hello, my family. We are back. We are back again. Hopefully you guys enjoyed RBN Live. I'm going to have my friend. I'm going to introduce him now. You guys know friend of the show. I had Fiorella Isabel on. We had Pasta on quite a few times. It's always fun to talk to Pasta. We kind of threw this together last second. I saw his debate with Jackson Hinkle, and we also had the same kind of conversation about MAGA communism. And it's also kind of a topic I wanted to talk to you about, like what it means to have solidarity, what it means to advocate for the right issues. But lo and behold, welcome to RBN, Pasta. Good to talk to you once again. Let me make sure your audio is good. There you go. Sorry, go ahead.
And nothing. I just saying thank you so much for having me back on. Appreciate it.
Once again, always good to talk to you and Fiorella. I always love the anti-imperialist work that you guys do over at the Convo Couch. You guys have a lot of experience talking to a lot of people. You go in the global south. You talking to a lot of different people down there about their experiences. You talk to a lot of Trump supporters, a lot of conservative people. And I love discourse and dialogue with people. But the whole goal, the entire point of politics is trying to win people over. So I actually, ever since I got into this space, I even enjoy a conversation or debate where you bounce ideas off yourself. How are we going to evolve as a left anti-imperialist movement if we are not debating and discussing ideas? And the same way that I had a conversation with Jackson not too long ago, you had a conversation with Jackson on Jimmy Dore. If you guys have not seen the debate, make sure you guys check out the whole thing. I'm gonna share maybe only a minute, just so you guys can see what the debate, just a little bit of the debate, and then I'll pass it to you, Pasta, so you can kind of chime on your point, your overall thoughts on MAGA communism. So if you haven't seen, this was the debate between Jackson and Pete.
Well, first of all, let me bring in Craig. Pasta. Now, what are your feelings about MAGA communism?
Well, first off, I want to say that I don't think it's disingenuous. I just think it's completely wrong. You know, I go to a lot of election integrity events, and right now those are filled with MAGA people out there because they feel they were, done wrong in the last election. So that is why I get to speak with a lot of MAGA people. And it's just diametrically opposed to each other. When you go to these events and you hear a lot of MAGA people, 9 times out of 10, their number one enemy is communism. They'll say it all the time. Oh, Marxism, communism, that's the problem. Even more than China, even more than Bill Gates and our good buddy over there, Jeff Bezos, or any type of oligarch. This is the thing they fear most. And at the end of the day, they feel that Marxism, and I honestly feel that a lot of communists in the United States, people who call themselves communists, I believe they're mostly cappuccino communists, I call them that. I don't think they really understand what communism is, like Jackson does and some of our friends who've probably read about theory and Engels and all these other people. But they feel that it's a complete opposite of what they're trying to achieve. They are capitalists through and through. They believe in choice. and they believe that Marxism and communism is the exact opposite. So
that's all I want to play. 'Cause I want you guys to check out the entire debate because I enjoyed it. I enjoy watching people discuss ideas where they strongly disagree without the yelling. So I want you to take it from their perspective. I just play a little bit of it because I want you guys to watch the rest of the debate on its own. But how will you, if you want to chime in for what we left on the video, or you want to get your take on MAGA communism, how this debate kind of got set up, and your kind of thoughts on messaging? Go ahead, Pasta.
Well, usually if I have something to say to Jackson, I'll usually just text him or call him or say what's up. But when I saw that MAGA communism out there, when Jackson first put it out there, I had just come back from an election integrity event in which I was speaking on a solutions panel, and which I can speak on my election observation overseas and kind of give solutions to what I see, overseas back here in the United States. And obviously right now, election integrity is big with the MAGA folk. The America Project was the group who put it together. If you don't know who that is, that's Patrick Byrne. He works alongside of General Flynn, and they go around doing election work. He's even made a documentary. So it's mostly a bunch of patriots, or MAGA. MAGA and patriots is what they like to call themselves. It's not a slogan anymore, too, as well. Another independent media person said, "Oh, it's a slogan on a hat." No, it's how they identify themselves. It's like how they like to be identified. So I'll call them that. My mother lives in sunny Boca Raton, Florida. A lot of conservative people over there, a lot of MAGA people. So I've always talked to a lot of MAGA people, including the election integrity people. So when I saw the MAGA communism thing right away, it just made me think about the whole day in which I spent with a bunch of patriots, MAGA folk. And their number one enemy has always been communism. Now, I made a tweet not too long after that, and I said, listen, I think 50% of the people who call themselves communists in the United States don't know what communism is. And a lot of them even kind of move towards the campus Marxism, what the conservatives call cultural Marxism, which is more about, social issues, identity politics. It really has nothing to do with Marx himself. However, that's the way I think a lot of the actual communists who identify themselves look at, and I think actual MAGA people look at the 90% of the MAGA people look at that, and they look at the cultural Marxism, and that's what they fear. They don't look at the economics the way RBN does. They don't look at the foreign policy. They look at Marxism and communism completely different. Regardless, like I said, I had to correct myself. I once said it was disingenuous. I took that back because that was something I said in a tweet, and just plainly said it's wrong. It doesn't exist. Their number one enemy, and they look at communism. This is MAGA folk, as an overarching authoritarian, too much central control power, and they want nothing to do with it. Capitalism, despite it biting them in the ass, and we have a complete capitalist system right now, and they still think that Joe Biden is a communist, that's how far off they are, has screwed them, but they believe it gives them choice when it actually gives them the illusion of choice, right? But they're strong about that, and even a lot of the libertarians that I know, they believe in a compassionate capitalism, as they like to call it right now, the new marketing for the Mises Caucus, removing the central government, removing the restrictions, removing everything away from the big government and putting it into the hands of the people. Now, I don't know if that will necessarily work from the libertarian point of view, but those two groups right there, but concentrating on MAGA, are just diametrically opposed to any form of Marxism and especially communism, even though they might be, misunderstood on what it is. Now, I do want to give Jackson some credit because, like my good friend Tim Canova told me when he saw it, we had a big discussion about it, and we had just done that that election integrity event together. He says, I think it's going to open up the door to talk about this more. When I talk to MAGA folk, Nick, I don't tell them that. I actually tell them, I said, a lot of people, these Black Lives Matter groups, right? Like Lauren Ingle from Fox once said, oh, the leader of Black Lives Matter, she's a Marxist, Leninist, whatnot. Me, Fee, and Johnny Tsunami, we've been out to about 50 Black Lives Matter events. We went out all the time. We went to Trump events out there in the streets. We don't talk about Marxism when we go out there and whatnot. We talk about, a Black oppression. We talk about homeless. And mostly we talk about the fact that there is not a strong labor organization in the United States. There's not a strong labor market. We're not making the money anymore that we're making 40, 50 years ago when you can buy a household, not working in a gig economy. All the jobs, all the manufacturing jobs are gone up sea. So when I talk to MAGA folk, I said, listen, those Marxists that you're calling Marxism, they really don't, want Marxism. They're not communists. They want strong labor. They want good jobs. They want to see less homeless people on the street. They want to see us stop wasting our resources, our money, and spend it on other places and spend it on us, the people. That's what we want. And that's somewhere we can agree on. So I try to remove the labels more than anything. You know what I'm saying? And when you open up the opening statement, you were talking about this. Now, I identify as a leftist libertarian. I was just on a conservative MAGA girl show today, and we are talking about removing these left-right labels anymore, because what do they even mean anymore? What is the left in America?
Bastardize them.
Yeah.
It's completely bastardized. And you made this point in the discussion, and I echo that as well. Like at the end of the day, you're going to end up confusing people instead of educating them at the end of the day. I want to because I have to say this. I just want to put this out there because I'm a Marxist. I'm a communist with a capital C, right? So obviously, when you have conservatives, they always say that communism equals authoritarianism. I make the claim, and most communists make the claim, because you're 100% right, Pasta. And I witnessed this frustration as a communist. There are so many of these people who think they far left, they think they're Marxists, they think they're communists, but all they really care about is social issues, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, they're going to vote for Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. They're going to enable the capitalist structure that we're supposed to be fighting. So you're 100% on the mark. There's so many people that haven't read theory, they have no idea what they're advocating for, and they can't even explain it. I will argue when it comes to authoritarianism, we have a capitalist model, we have a communist model, social democrat model. Authoritarianism in all the countries does not change. It does because authority is just how much you want to enforce your laws. And I would just argue, if you are a capitalist, look at how the United States imprisons 1/4 of the world's prison population. How we ban marijuana because they are more interested in taking care of the capitalists. And communism is actually the most democratic, because now we're talking about the dictatorship of the proletariat. Under capitalism, the people who control the central means of production is the capitalists. So they do stuff like putting people in student loan debt. They spend a ton of money on the military-industrial complex because they don't care about society as a whole. They care about the people who hold capital. Under a communist, that's actually the most free society. That's the most democratic society, because once again, that dictatorship of the proletariat. That's where you get free healthcare, housing, because that's something that we would decide since we control the means of production. So that's the difference. I think a lot of people don't understand. I just have to say that in response
I hear you.
to the whole communism equal authoritarian thing. But I think it's important to avoid labels, because I can talk to a Trump supporter and I can have him repeating Marxist theory without him even realizing it. Yeah. And I think that's a giant misstep of MAGA communism. Do you want to take it from there, Pasta, before I share this clip? Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to say too that, listen, a lot of theory was written a long time ago before, the microchip was ever invented. Now we have an overreaching security state. Our privacy has gone out the window. I've always advocated for a mixed economy. You know what I'm saying? So many times, I've been overseas in Colombia, and I hung out with a Leninist, right? Like a hardcore Leninist, like theory and all 9 yards. He will even argue the fact that socialists will even claim that they've never had a real true form of socialism, that there was never ever really a true form of communism implanted. Well, guess who also says the same thing? Capitalist. They say, oh, we've never had capitalism. We've only had crony capitalism. Especially libertarians, they'll argue that all the time. I just think it's important, once again, to have a mixed economy and understand the things that are important. When I look at RBM, when I look at the work that Rome does, I think mutual aid, that's important. You know what I'm saying? And look what the MAGA people are doing. You know what point they are getting kind of close to communism? It's like they're getting ready to go live off the grid in a commune together and take care of each other and whatnot, but participate in some mutual aid in a commune like a communist of sorts. I mean, they don't want that completely. They want to have a right to have their own decisions. That's why I think anarchists, true anarchists, there's something beautiful there too as well. But I believe now in the 21st century that we just got to, take what's best from each different type of ism and think human instead of ism and come up with a system that works for everybody, because it's just a different game right now with the microchip, with, the way security is. And then, of course, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, when it comes to the medical industry. Oh, man, what we just experienced just over the last couple of years, qualified immunity, still people don't think about it, a lot of capitalist traits, but when you have people in a social program like a UBI or Medicare for all, then you can also control a lot of people that way as well, and that was something I hope maybe we'll get to the whole globalism versus capitalism conversation, because that's another great conversation.
I actually would love to hear. I would love to hear your take on that. And Pasta, you mentioned that you believe in mixed economies, and I know a lot of these fake once again, going back to the LARPers, there are a lot of people who LARP as communists, and I know these people because they're in my space, right? Where they would say, "Oh, I don't want to work with you. Oh, you're a capitalist." They'll cancel you for saying that, Pasta. Just for saying that you believe in mixed economies. I think these people are ops. I think these people are ops that literally designed to divide the working class. Now, I believe in communism because everything I read about it, I truly believe it's a more efficient system than capitalism that give us a lot of power. But as long as you want to help me take care of our community in imperialism, give us healthcare, increase the quality of our life, I think we need to form coalitions with people, even who they don't share the exact same ideology. If you believe in mixed economy, but if you want to give us healthcare, if you want to end the wars, let's work together. I think it's the ops that would say, "Oh, Pasta, you're not a communist. You believe in mixed economies, you're done." I know a lot of people who get upset when I platform people who are not communists.
Yeah.
We got to learn to form coalitions with people. I believe in communism in all my heart, and I believe that the only reason we haven't seen a thriving example of communism is because capitalism won't allow it to exist. There's always been a constant imperialist capitalist struggle against communism that never allowed it to thrive without that interference. Now, I actually want to show because I talked to Jackson Hinkle as well, because I think it's fair to give people both sides of the debate as well. And when me, CJ, and Danny Highfong had our conversation, I was like, well, I guess I got to have Jackson on because I think it's only fair. I reached out to him. He agreed. So just to be fair, I want to show you guys this clip. What does OAN stand for, Pasta?
One American News.
One American News. Okay. Yeah. Like I only seen the abbreviation. I maybe seen 5 clips of this place. My entire time paying attention to politics. Apparently OAN makes like Fox News, like CNN, fucking centrist, apparently. So Jackson went on OAN, and I want to play this clip where he explained because Pasta gave his critique. You guys saw that. You guys either saw or you can check out the debate between him and Pasta. But if you guys don't know his argument, I want to at least play it so you guys can understand where Jackson's come from, and also you can take this time to respond to the clip if you have anything you want to add as well. Because this clip is there's so many people that honestly Jackson Hinkle, they live in their head. Jackson Hinkle is in a lot of these people's brain rent free because this clip is going everywhere. People can't shut up about it, so that's why I found it. So I want to get your reaction to it. Let me pull it up here.
Came across you most recently with the trending hashtag MAGA Communism. Now, a lot of people are going to hear that hashtag MAGA Communism and be a little bit confused. So I'm going to let you explain what that means because I don't think you're a communist, Jackson.
Well, I actually am a communist, but at the end of the day, communists have a lot of the same goals as working class Americans made up in the MAGA movement. We want more prosperity for average Americans. We want to end big tech. We want to end big agriculture, big pharma. We want to stop the monopolies and the subsidization of monopolies all across America. And we want to reinstill patriotic education in this country. We don't want open borders. We don't want, a green fascist push amongst our people. These aren't things that we support because we are average Americans as well. And the synthetic leftists today, the Democratic Party and the so-called progressives, they're far close, though they might call themselves socialists, they're far closer aligned with, the quote-unquote national socialists in Nazi Germany than any sort of, socialism that we see unfolding of true industrialization in, say, China today or the Soviet Union. And though, average Americans can have many disputes and concerns over the Soviet Union or China today, we have to recognize that these are two countries that chose industrialization over the World Economic Forum path today that's pushing depopulation and degrowth. So we as communists want to unite with MAGA voters and finish the job of Donald Trump, which is, uprooting liberalism from America and getting the globalists out of the MAGA movement, because there's so many globalists that are trying to co-opt the MAGA movement and bring about neoconservatism in the MAGA movement. We need to do away with that. We need to do away with people like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo and make sure that this is truly a working class movement.
I apologize, guys. My mouse is acting up. That's why it's taking me so long. But Pasta, what's your initial reaction to watching that clip?
I mean, very much what I said when we started. Listen, I don't know if it's a silver lining, but I think we have to point out the positive points, that will come about this. If more people talk and consider and look into what actual communism is, I think at the end of the day, as long as it leads them to understand that no ism is good, the only ism that we need to worry about is elitism. I believe personally that, elitist oligarchs will sit over any system and take advantage of any system, whether it be communism, capitalism, globalists. Once again, I don't necessarily believe that nation states are calling the shots here, because I don't even necessarily believe in nation states. I believe that most governments are bought off across the board. And there's obviously some questions to be had now in China and Russia and whatnot. But I mean, if that gets people to talking and looking more into what communism actually is, so be it. That is right. And in one sense, it's technically right to say that a Marxist and a communist can work together. And that's when they talk about their common goals and the economics and the labor issue. So I don't think it's awful what he said. He went out there, he gave a shtick, and he said what he said. Once again, I disagree. I look to remove the labels, and I think we should. And my argument or my debate would have been, say, hey, listen, let's forget about that person being a MAGA. Let's forget about that person being a communist. Let's talk together on what we need to do as Americans, where we need to hold our government accountable, and the changes we need to make. And let's get rid of these globalists. Let's get rid of these elitists, these oligarchs controlling things. Then we can get in a room and decide what's best for us. I believe if we did get in a room and decide what's best for us, we'll make some concessions for some of the capitalists, and the capitalists will make some concessions for the communists. And that's what would happen. And that's why I think at the end of the day, we can come up with a mixed system, because the mixed system is not just so much that I believe in this and that with that. It's I believe that we need to have compromise across the board. So if Jackson's talking about some compromise there, yeah, that's good. However, I just think that it's leading down of a path to be a situation that can be more weaponized and used to separate us even further. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it's just harder for people to come together if we put those labels on people, especially when they're totally two different things.
Yeah, I'm all for people having conversations and trying to convert people. On RBN, I often made the argument that I think it's upon, and I do my job to help, but I think it's upon the white community to talk to your brothers and sisters and drag them to our position. And whatever strategy you use to do that, and if it's effective, that's great. But we just have critique of the strategy. And this is the question I asked Jackson now, and I'm gonna ask Dr. Henry. Not really sure who he is. I think he's a Haas Orbiter or some another representative of MAGA communism. I'm gonna try and have him on Friday, and we can have another debate about it. But I was asking Jackson, like, what's the difference between advocating for MAGA communism and supporting the Justice Democrats? Because he said the MAGA idea was hijacked by fake Republicans or whatever, globalist Republicans. There was no MAGA agenda. Like MAGA was a campaign slogan. Donald Trump hired Steve Mnuchin. Literally, Steve Mnuchin had Mike Pompeo in his cabinet. He hired John Bolton. So the message that he's spreading here is that, the Republicans are abandoning the original message of Trump. That is not how we're supposed to be educating workers. We're supposed to be educating workers that Trump betrayed the people who supported him. The MAGA movement is a fraud, and we need to pull people away from the two-party duopoly, not pretending that one is better than the other, because there is quite literally no difference between that and the Justice Democrats. Yeah. Boston, do you want to take that on before we move on to the next topic? Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. I so agree with you, but I don't know if that's the proper tactic that we should use. There is something, some people, friends of mine, were having going back and forth on Twitter today a little bit in a friendly way, talking about what we're supposed to do. I understand the position of looking at Donald Trump and all the negative things he's done, right? And listen, I hang out with a bunch of libertarians, and the libertarians, they can't stand Donald Trump. But the libertarians' criticism of Donald Trump is so much better than the bourgeois synthetic left criticism of Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, you still have to look at the MAGA supporter. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
They're not an evil person for following him, because what they see in front of them, and especially from the programming, they see A team or B team and seeing that this team is a little bit better than that team. I think they're onto something. And listen, it's a hard argument to say that you're mitigating damage by voting for a leftist Democrat, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to a Republican. I'm sorry. At the end of the day, freedom of speech, anti-censorship, civil liberties, those kind of things, pro Second Amendment, right? You know what I'm saying? I mean, look, Fred Hampton's group, the Black Panthers, they were pro Second Amendment people too as well. And on a side note, you guys, I got to get you to talk to some of these libertarians about what happened when Jim Crow era and stuff like that, when they were trying to disarm black people in America. And it was libertarians speaking up, saying, no, the black community deserves to arm themselves. That's libertarian, ideology and stuff. But back to what we were talking about over here, it's just, I don't think it's going to be a sell if we say, you got to get away from MAGA, you got to do this, you got to understand who he is. You can say, listen, I don't follow him for those reasons. I'm not going to follow him. I don't doubt you for following him, but let's talk about the things that we agree on. I think that we just have to stick to the things we agree on, because as soon as we start kind of pointing fingers and saying, you're doing this and you're doing that, we're going to lose those people. It's different to address Donald Trump himself than addressing his followers,
The only pushback I have and where I disagree, I think it's extremely important. I think it's actually very uniting to tell people to lead a two-party duopoly. So I have fun talking to Trump supporters, because I'm like, do you remember what Trump said on the campaign trail, where he said he's going to hold Saudi Arabia accountable? Trump used to have a lot of great lines on the campaign trail that a lot of people used to melt down because they were liberals. But I remember Trump called out Hillary Clinton for her corruption with Saudi Arabia donating to the Clinton Foundation, and then she gave Saudi Arabia weapons deals and favors. Then Donald Trump took office. Then he took donations from Saudi Arabia to Mar-a-Lago, and then all of a sudden he's giving them weapon deals, and he loves Saudi Arabia now. These are the kind of things I just point out to Trump supporters. I'm not mean. I would be like, hey, yo, I thought Trump didn't like Saudi Arabia. Remember when he called out Hillary Clinton? I may not pull him away from Trump at that point, but I need people to leave the two-party duopoly, and that's divisive, and that may turn a lot of people off if you vote Democrat. That's why that strategy does not work. If you like some Democrat voting progressive lib, and you're like, oh, why you guys got to abandon Donald Trump? And they like, you vote Democrat too. But if I talk to people, I'm like, yo, we need both the Republican Party and Democrat Party is screwing us. I think that is the message, and I got some MAGA people that follow me that I think that resonates with them. But do you want to take that on, Pasta? And also, go ahead.
I just want to say I agree with you. Obviously, when I was on Sabby's show, I was talking about the Libertarian Party. I talked to Jimmy about it. I had Jimmy on with Dave Smith, you know what I'm saying, another big libertarian. Here's the thing. It's a lot easier to get people to leave the two-party duopoly if you got them someplace to go, right? And I find it better to say, hey, listen, okay, I see what you got going on over there, but look what we got on over here. Right here in the Libertarian Party, we're sound anti-regime, interventionists over here. We're not going to go into any other places. We're not going to use our children to fight these wars, to come back home, to kill themselves, 22 soldiers a day, ex-vets a day, to go fight these wars, to go over there, kill these indigenous people over there, waste a ton of money, come out of our tax dollars. We're going to do that. We're going to stand firm on that over here. Look at over here. We're anti-censorship across the board. Libertarian Party has always been there. So I think it's better to say, hey, let's move over here rather than you don't want to be over there. They're idiots. When people say, well, why don't you support Donald Trump? I give them the reasons I don't support Donald Trump. And they're like, all right. Obviously Julian Assange is a big one because Julian Assange is not just one man. Julian Assange is freedom of the press. They're not going after Julian Assange. They're going after all of us. You doing this show, RBN, me doing this show, and the Convo Couch. Julian Assange was just in their way. It's a bigger picture, and Donald Trump punted on that. He also said that people should go to jail for a year for burning the flag. Hey, the Libertarian Party believes it's your piece of property. You do what you want with it, right? The country was founded on property rights. So you think that? We're Second Amendment absolutists, First Amendment absolutists over here. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I think it's better when you have a place to sell. And even when I got that place to sell, right, Nick? People are like, why are you just a hardcore libertarian? I'm like, no, I call it the great compromise. I get 3 things out of this party, and then I'll probably bounce eventually and go find another party. But right now, we need a third party. We can't do this two-party duopoly. This party has the best political chance. They're in all 50 states. They are freedom of speech, freedom of press. They're anti-regime, you know what I'm saying? And they believe that you have a right. They're against mandates. There's so many things. I call it the great compromise. Sure, I'm not going to get Medicare for all with these guys because they think the free market's going to work itself out, but they want to remove the government entity. And we just saw what the government just did. The government was mandating stuff, and if you didn't do it, you lost your job. Even when you have a place to go, it might be another place you go after that. But I think it's better to get people away from the two-party duopoly by showing them there's a better place to go to, not just that they suck in the place they're at. Because if we say they suck in the place they're at, they immediately get turned off, and we can't get them over to where we got to get them.
I agree. I wouldn't approach it that way. I wouldn't be like, "Yo, you're a dumb." I was like, "No, they tricked you. Let's course correct." And I actually want to ask you a question because I actually had a call-in show. I do have a call-in show, Revolutionary Discourse, and I had this libertarian dude I talked to like twice, and he heard my politics. He watched our show, and he was like, "Dude, I promise you, you will do like libertarians will want to work with you." And my response to him was the same twice when he asked this question. And I'm like, yo, everything the Libertarian Party says they believe, it sounds good on paper. Where like they say they support ending the wars and all this stuff. But from what I've seen, I want to get your take on this, and I want to see if I'm correct. The problem with the Libertarian Party is it seems like a seriousness issue. I don't see a lot of them being. And once again, I would love to get your take on it because I'm just looking from the outside in. I see a lot, and I told the guy, I see a lot of libertarians engaging in the same culture war that the right wing Republican Party is engaging in. So I'm like, even if we want to work together on ending the wars and legalizing marijuana, you guys are immediately dividing the working class movement. Now we need you to drop that. And I told him, like, if you guys drop these culture wars, we will be 100% for forming coalitions with you guys. But I feel like so many of the libertarian, like at least or maybe the most popular one, maybe they're not a good representative. But I see like a lot of these pages, and they just tweet about trans issues all the time. They talking about, oh, the Little Mermaid is black. I'm like, will we get serious? But anyway, I will get your take on that. That was just a question that came up. Do you want to take that on real quick?
Yeah. Well, first off, the Libertarian Party, as far as seriousness, has got new management. The Mises Caucus is now taken over. And I shouldn't be saying taken over, but the Mises Caucus is now in charge, because I don't want to say taken over, but they are in charge. And that is the spirit and fight of what I've been described as the Ron Paul Party. Now, you want to talk about anti-imperialist. Bernie Sanders was no anti-imperialist. He had a lot of things. Kosovo, you want to go back to. Tulsi Gabbard, she was, she fronted like she was anti-imperialist, but recently she's over in Africa just still doing work for the empire. And I don't care. I don't want to hear it that, we have all these radical Islamic groups in Africa and stuff like that. She knows damn well who funds those groups and why they are there. The person who was on the floor, and you go back, we just played it today. We played a clip today on the morning show about Ron Paul, libertarian, talking about who started Hamas, about Israel started Hamas. You want to talk about other countries getting messing around? He talks about blowback. They are serious when it comes to anti-regime, and that's who's taking over now, the party. They might look at it a little bit more as a fiscal thing than, let's say, an anti-imperialist leftist, like, all of us, which is probably what I best describe, us anti-imperialist left is what I like to say. But they don't want to mess around anywhere. In fact, Scott Horton didn't even think that Russia should have done military actions in Ukraine, which I totally disagree with, Matt. But that's how much of a pacifist, that's how much of an anti-interventionist they are. They're the ones taking over. And secondly, those guys, they don't buy into the culture war. They don't even talk about that stuff, and they are pro-speech. They are anti-censorship. We're not going to agree with them on a lot of things. I want to ban fracking tomorrow. I really do, because I think it messes with our water. I want to find ways that we can take THC and hemp and make maybe pellets, or like subsidize it with coal. So all the coal that we're burning for electricity, we can use 1/5 of that, or whatever the case may be. So, I have ideas, and we're not going to get those. We're not going to get Medicare for all with them either. They'll remove the government entity. They'll remove the lobbyists. They'll remove all the restrictions, and they think it will be a lot better, and it will fix itself completely. I don't think it will fix itself completely, but I think we'll see some movement as long as we get the lobbyists and the government out, because that's how Big Pharma exists, because it's got the government, Big Brother standing behind them, doing whatever they need to do. But we're not going to get everything, but we will get a compromise. And I think that, and here's something else too, because I don't want to spoil it. So I told you I've been struggling to get that reparations panel together because some people have not come together. But guess who hates cops more than the anti-imperialist left? Libertarians.
Yep.
Libertarians can't stand it. They want police reform like nobody's business. One of the craziest things that we witnessed before, too, was the whole Rand Paul situation. Now, I'm not a big Rand Paul person. I don't have a Rand Paul shirt. I like Ron Paul a lot better, But Rand Paul tried to change and eliminate no-knock warrants, right? That's a libertarian move, right? It's an infringement on our speech. It's an infringement on our privacy, our civil liberties, right? All those things. Rand Paul tried to remove no-knock warrants. Now, I understand he's bad in a lot of other areas. I don't want to get into Rand Paul. But the people yelling at her, say her name. Well, he said Breonna Taylor's name when it mattered most on the floor of the Senate. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a lot of things. I think I would like to get together and get, libertarians out there to talk police reform with RBN and get some of you guys on there and get some questions and see what it's all about. I think that there's another compromise right there. I think
that's where a lot of the libertarians that follow me find me, is on the police. And I have a ton of disagreements with the Libertarian Party. I find their view on socialism and economics to be deplorable. But the point you made earlier, I can work with a right-wing libertarian way more than I can work with a Joe Biden Democrat.
Absolutely.
A Joe Biden Democrat believes in giant police budgets, giant military budgets. These are not small disagreements. That is not a small disagreement. So if you're anti-cop, I'm like, oh damn, at least you're not for the colonization of my communities, right? So at least that's a good starting point. I want to ask you about this because I know the Green Party is extremely rocky. But what are your thoughts on the Green Party? I know you jumped immediately to the Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of disappointment. I would love your thoughts on
I'm gonna get listen. I'm gonna get yelled at for this, Nick. There's a friend of mine who's part of the Green Party, and he got mad at me. He called me up. He's like, "How can you say the Green Party's falling on the wayside? Green Party's got bad management right now." Just it. You know what I'm saying? Listen, you line up the Libertarians, you level up the Green Party. The Green Party's got a lot of libertarian ways about it. In fact, Kevin Zeese at one point, when he was going to run as a Green a long time ago, may God rest his soul, he's no longer with us. He had told me that, you know, the Libertarians wanted him to run because they felt he was, you know, Libertarian as well as Green. So, I mean, I'd love to see the Greens do something. But right now with this whole Howie Hawkins thing and his campaign manager, I can't remember her name, Andrea Meridia, whatever her name is and stuff like that. They're a joke. You know, Howie's 0-26. He doesn't connect with anybody. I mean, he's just awful. He was awful on elections. He's been awful on so many different things. He needs to go. I mean, the steering committee coming out and saying they're for mandates, you know, and the Black Caucus had to come out and say something against them. They got rid of the guy in the Black Caucus. They one of the leaders. I forgot his name. He spoke at Speak the Mandate too. They're just in shambles when it comes to management. Now, they're doing some great work in some areas over there. The Jill Stein wing is very strong still. There's a small bit of them. The Jill Stein wing is still very strong. My boy Justin Beth, you know, I love him. He's doing some good work. I believe her name is Lisa Savage. You know, they got that, you know, that entity of them over there. But I still feel like they're alone, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like they're not out there and they just don't have it together. They got on 23 state ballots, I think, last time. And then they also had Jesse Ventura got on the ballot in Alaska. That was the guy, Billy Pounds, who's got the independent Green Party now in Arizona. There's two parties out there because they don't even get along. They have bad management right now. Yeah, I think that instead of starting your own party, though, like, you know, instead of doing the Nick Brana thing and the whole MPP thing, I think they should have just tried to, you know, get into the Green Party and take it over and make a move. Listen, it happened with the Mises Caucus. The Mises Caucus has control. There no longer will be a joke. You will see they will have strong candidates. Their message will be there. Maj Touré is a part of that whole group, like I said. I mean, there's so many good people there that they have. Justin Amash over there. I don't agree with these people on anything, but they are set right now to make a serious move to the Libertarian Party. And I am, for one, going to try to get them elevated because of the third party, and then we just go walk eventually when we have three parties instead of two parties.
I actually agree with a ton of what you said there because I interviewed Howie Hawkins on the show and I asked him about stuff like mandates. I asked him about Russiagate, and it was beyond disappointing. Beyond disappointing. I asked him a straight up question like, if there was a single mom with two kids and she could lose her job because she refused to get the vaccine, will you be okay with that? And he's like, no, I don't care. Like, how is that a working class position? Like, that to me, that's disqualifying. Yeah. And there was in the Howie Hawkins wing of the Green Party there were so many missteps that they took. The positives I see for the Green Party is I was an advocate of the Green Party, and they know who I am. So there were a lot of local organizers that reached out because I remember I did one live stream and I had one viral tweet where I was like, if you look at the Green Party platform, it's one of the most pro-black platforms. We need to rebrand this party as like the pro-black, pro-working class party. Like when I look at this platform, this is such an amazing platform. It is how it sucks. That wing of the Green Party sucks. But what you said earlier, the Jill Stein wing is still fire. We just had Jill Stein on. Sound completely different than Howie Hawkins on Ukraine, for example. I was asking Howie Hawkins about Ukraine, Russia, and he had Putin derangement syndrome. Over Russiagate, he had Putin derangement syndrome. Jill Stein wasn't falling for none of that shit. So yeah. I don't know where this divide in the Green Party happened, but it must stop. I told a lot of people in the Green Party, you guys have to embrace the Jill Stein wing. And surprisingly enough, we had during our third party summit, we had a high ranking. I don't remember her name, CJ, but she was a really high ranking member of the Green Party, and she straight up admitted, like, yeah, I wasn't happy with how I was. So I think at least my game plan, being extreme left economic, is to try to take over this party locally, especially since I know a lot of people in the Kansas City Green Party. But I just think it's important to prop up third party movements and reject the two-party duopoly. One thing I want to get into before we get into some of the headlines, because we didn't exactly touch on it, because we going to the OAN interview with Jackson Hinkle, and I think this is an attempt to trick MAGA people, the use of the term globalist. I already explained my my criticism of that, because globalism means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. There are conservatives that think fighting the globalists means closing the border, right? And you have instead of actually fighting the capitalist class and having a class-based approach to politics, I think it's more effective to be more precise in your language. But Pasta, I want you to take down, because I actually want to hear your critique, because many people on my channel already heard mine. So and we already had that debate. So I actually curious to hear what your thought on that.
I heard you say it too as well one day. I said with globalism is capitalism, and I was like, no, sorry, no. And that's just, well, listen, here's the thing too as well. That conservative movement, the MAGA people, they're a little bit more into that conservative movement. They're a little bit ahead of that game when it comes to understanding and looking at globalists, and I think than the left do. The left just always capitulate to power. That's the problem with the left, is sometimes, and I'm not talking about, present company over here. I'm talking about the Bernie Sanders people and stuff, getting back to Camp Dada, you're talking about the whole, the whole organizing thing and them trying to get that thing together. I've worked with progressives before organizing, and it's like pulling teeth. It's really, really hard. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, they still think they can move people left. You ain't moving people left. These are globalists. And what I mean about globalists is that globalists sit over the system of everything that's going on. And whatever system it may be, whatever ism it be, capitalism, communism, socialism, globalism is just an attempt to have a one world government of sorts, of people who control all the resources, not just the capital, because they create the capital. You got to remember what capital is, what money is. Our dollar is not backed by anything. It's not backed by gold and commodities like Russia's ruble. It's backed by a missile. It's backed by a tank. You know what I'm saying? It's forced upon these countries. But globalists, they understand, they want to control every single system. They want to make sure they have a we're on YouTube, so I don't want to talk so much about my opinions as far as when it comes to the medical situation, and saying they're going to kind of hurt people and stuff. They believe that transhumanism is the next eugenics of sorts. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of proof out there if you go looking and seeing all these things written before. The Rothschilds have a lot more control than any capitalist out there, or communist out there right now. They're the ones pulling the strings. So globalists sit above the whole system. That's what I firmly believe. So
the pushback I have, and the reason why I still believe globalism is just capitalism. Once you understand capitalism is a central production model that favors who holds capital, the whole goal of the globalists is to consolidate power. The goal of the capitalists is to consolidate power. The only thing they're doing is providing different strategies by doing that. And when you guys come up with the term globalist, it's almost like you guys are saying that this is a new thing. Like capitalists have conspired with other international capitalists to control and dominate markets for years. So it's not a new thing. This is how capitalists operate. They don't care about borders. They work with capitalists in other countries to maintain their own power. This is why they will ship their jobs overseas. This is just stuff that capitalists do. Like the Republicans think, oh yeah, we want to bring the jobs back home. We're tired of all these globalists shipping the jobs overseas. I want to know, capitalists ship jobs overseas to cut cost. You understand? If anything to cut costs, capitalists would do, and that is what a lot of globalists are doing. But I'll give you a chance to respond. I want to get to another.
I think that you're looking more at the actual byproduct of capitalism, not what capitalism is written to be. You know what I'm saying? Once again, I don't want to advocate capitalism because I'm not a capitalist. The same way I'm not a socialist. Once again, a mixed economy is what I'm shooting for. But all these social entities, the globalists can control just as well. You know what I'm saying? And what I mean by that is that if you have a UBI, which is a socialist program, right? If you have a universal healthcare system where everybody's in one system, then the globalists can mandate and move people. Oh, you want that UBI check? If you don't do so and so, you don't get that check. Same thing, with universal healthcare. We can hurdle people into a certain way. If you don't get this procedure, the procedure that we're talking about, you lose your job. So I just once again, I think it's above that. I think that the fact is that there's capitalism and there's communism, which been kind of two-party dualities, have been fighting each other for a long time. We had Johnny Vedmore on the morning show talking about this, about when it was invented and whatnot. I believe any system of control, whether it be communism, capitalism, could be controlled by globalists. You're pointing out basic capitalist ideologies and basic capitalist plans when it comes to NAFTA and whatnot, but they'll still manipulate other markets out there, whether it be socialism or communism. You know what I'm saying? I just believe that, it's more about this one world government that they're trying to do. All these people, Epstein, all these people who never got charged, Ghislaine Maxwell got charged for sex trafficking children to nobody, right? Those are your globalists right there. They sit above all the systems. So
I'm gonna say this. I'm interested in hearing your response, because as a communist, my ideology is I look at a lot of people who call themselves capitalists as people who kind of LARPing. Like, how are you gonna call yourself a capitalist if you don't own capital? You are an exploited worker who pretending that you're a capitalist. That's what most people are. The people you are describing as globalists are the people who own capital, and they are the one who decide. And they had the amount of influence because the capitalist society consolidate their power. Thus, they implement globalist agenda. Those are the people on the top, and I will argue that both the Democrat and the Republican Party do it. And you got a lot of Republican people who say, "Oh my God, the Democrats are globalists." I know the Republican Party are globalists too, based on your definition. So I don't understand the disconnect from a lot of people from what they say on like the difference. I still don't understand that. Like, what makes a globalist more inherently evil than like a Republican capitalist who's exploiting workers, who's supporting war. I don't want to be this horse to death, but go ahead, Pops. I give you a chance.
Well, the Republican worker who calls himself a capitalist because at the end of the day, he equates capitalism to choice, the free market, that he can do what he wants. He might look at a communist who's going to believe in big government, limited choice. You know what I'm saying? Big government, that he's big programs where a lot of control can go out the window. You know what I'm saying? It's not a collective mindset. It's an individual's mindset. So that's the way they look at things differently, you know. But like I said, at the end of the day, that globalist wants to control any system that's out there. And globalism is very close to imperialism, you know, people conquering different territories of the world and stuff like that. Well, capitalists didn't come out until like 18th century, right? Attila the Hun, who was an imperialist and a conqueror, you know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? He didn't kind of ingest this kind of capitalist system. He was an imperialist. So at the end of the day, globalists are more about control, capitalists are more about capital. And people thinking they can work within a capital system, they honestly believe. See, here's my issue when it comes to capitalism. I believe that capitalism will always turn to crony capitalism, which is pretty much fascism. Capital will eventually be bought out, merged with the government. Corporations will merge together, like Benito Mussolini said. That's what fascism is. It's the merger of corporations and state. And that's what capitalism will always turn to. That's why we need a mixed system. We need to say, hey, what are the good things of communism? Let's take that out of there. What are the good things of capitalism? Let's take that out of there. And let's get to a point where you have this system where we're protected. We have the things we want. Nobody's going to fall through the cracks because we're going to take care of them. You know what I'm saying? We're going to put a limit on what people can make so they can't be Jeff Bezos and taking rocket rides while people are starving on the streets. So, you know, I mean, globalist is not a white dude's term, dude. So, I read the screen there for a second. It is not. You know what I'm saying? I believe there are people who are helping globalists that are all different shapes, sizes, and color. So, you know.
I do think it's a term that make white people more comfortable than calling out capitalism. I do think that, but it's a very interesting perspective that you have. I don't want to beat this horse to death. Yeah. I think we both shared our views and our counterpoints. So I want to ask you about this because we only had like an hour tonight. We late and I already had a long day. So I want to ask you about this. I want to share this story because I love your coverage on this because I've seen a lot of people freaking out about the migrant crisis. And when you look at the two-party duopoly and their sycophants, and I'm talking about on both sides, like CNN, like this is a CNN story. And I read quite a few of these stories talking about the migrant crisis, and they never talk about like what caused the migrant crisis. So this is a story I just read not too long ago. I pulled this one just because this last one I read is that the migrant crisis is so much larger than the census stunt. And this is the stunt where they shipped a ton of migrants to Martha Vineyard that have been all over the news. So this is the story. I would love to ask you your take on this. And what do you think is like the key? Because I'm going to be on the Hill on Thursday, and then we're going to talk about this. What is the root cause of this migration crisis? So I'm actually very curious to hear your answer. Maybe I can learn something before I go on the Rising as well. So, Pasta, do you want to take this on? What are your general take on this story, Pasta?
Well, I'm glad you brought this story to the table today because this is something that really got me involved in wanting to do what I'm doing today. You know, I was always in the restaurant business, but I wanted to do more. And even though I worked myself up finally to a six-figure salary being by a training coordinator, and I'd worked a long time to do that, to actually write training programs, I went and did this because I was so moved by this issue right here. I can never understand why a lot of my family members were always like very like, you know, closed border type mentality with down for building a wall, whatnot. And their reasons for always saying why they want to do that is we believe we have limited resources, that we can't share our resources, that we just don't have enough for our own citizens. And they would fall for that whole kind of comparison, like, well, who should we take care of, a veteran or an illegal immigrant? It's like, well, why do we have to make that choice anyways? And I made a tweet the other day. I said, for all the conservatives, and I really kind of looked at the conservatives at this situation, because yes, Ron DeSantis and Governor Abbott, they did point out the hypocrisy of the Democrats, send them to Martha's Vineyard, and in less than 22 hours, we got to sound, what do they do? These people who are always, got the sign in their lawns, Black Lives Matter sticker on their car, coexist on the other side of the car, always like, these latte liberals, I'd like to call them. But, these brown people here on our island, and we got to get rid of them in less than 22 hours later, and we got to ship them off when you're saying all that stuff. I mean, really, that's what they were saying. I thought it was really racist what they did. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like you're going to say all this shit, and they have immigrants on your doorstep, and you're going to send them off the island. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? And all right, you point out the hypocrisy. I got it, Governor Santis. But to use humans, these are human beings, as pawns is also disgusting. And second, the fact is, if you want to use these people as pawns and you want to try to prove a point, then you better damn well talk about the source of migration in the first place. And nobody ever talks about it, whether it be Democrat, Republican, they avoid it. They always talk about the Band-Aid solution at the border. Well, why are people coming? Well, we have 81 bases in the global south down there in Latin America. 81 bases. They ain't there just hang out like the Boy Scouts and hand out cookies on the Maidan and all around and do lovely things or to protect the citizens. They're there to protect the corporations. We go down there because there's many things we want to do. Resource extraction. And this is something I explained to the MAGA people. Like I said, those globalists that you don't like, that you feel these corporate globalists like these Bezos and these Bill Gates people and all the people that have all these corporations over here. Well, they're the same people extracting those resources down there. They're stealing the resources. They go down there, they put up these puppet governments, and they control all the resources. Then they thrust their monetary system on there. They turn the country into chaos. Everybody's killing each other, and therefore people migrate this way. So if you're not pointing out the reason why they're coming here in the first place, we went down to Honduras. We were down there in 2020 in that last election, right? 2021, I believe it was. And we went down there, and they told us what happened in 2017. The United States interfered in their election. The OAS, which is traditionally a NGO arm of the CIA, right? They're all about regime change. They're there to look and say, oh, these elections were fair or unfair, and they always lean on the side of the West and the imperialists. Well, they even said that election was so unfair. Trump administration, though, backed it there, let Juan Orlando Hernandez stay in power. Country was in chaos. They even told us a lot of our friends went to the United States because you guys stuck your nose in our business. You pretty much picked our president. And this has been going on for so long. That behavior we see in the Ukraine of funding Azov Battalion and stuff like that, we've been doing that down here in the global south on our own hemisphere for quite some time. Just look up the Iran-Contra affair where we took cocaine, turned it into cracks, thrust it in the streets of New York and L.A. a la Rick Ross, took that money, bought weapons, sold them to the Contras that fought the Sandinistas government, where babies, children, women got killed. People had to flee for their friggin' lives. This is our problem. We created down there, and I wish MAGA would look at it. I wish the Democrats would take their head out of and look at it and talk about the real issue. You want a wall, MAGA people? I'll give you the biggest, most beautiful wall. Close the bases. Close the bases, and guess what, Nick? We wouldn't need a wall because people wouldn't come.
Yes.
National sovereignty.
They think that people are dying to come to this country. A lot of times these people are coming because we destroyed it. They love their culture. They love their land. And a lot of them feel a lot of content in the fact that they had to move in the first place. Yep. And this is what drives me crazy. And this is why I don't know if you agree. We probably disagree, but I believe in open borders as a concept because this is just how the world is, right? How can we be super strict on borders when we invading other countries? We invade other countries. We meddle in their elections. We ship companies and jobs overseas, but then we say the workers can't follow them? We meddle in other countries and we say, oh, well, you can't immigrate. To me, that doesn't make sense. So if you're going to involve, especially in the case of you, intervening with a country, destabilizing it, like in Venezuela, for example, with them constantly propping up extreme right-wing fascists, and then when the Venezuelan people reject your choice, they punish them by putting sanctions on the people. The same thing you see with Nicaragua. So they're punishing a community, destabilizing their country because they disagree with them politically. And then when they get here, they say, oh, we're going to treat you like shit. My position is, I don't. If you're going to get involved in other people's country, you don't have the right to shut down your border. You take care of the people. It's upon you to take care of the people that you destroyed. And in the meantime, we in U.S. imperialism, we in endless war that would, like you said, decrease the migration crisis. If we had a pro-worker economic system, that would destroy, like the whole concept. We're gonna have massive migration that destroys the quality of life of the workers. Does not make sense to me, considering that the main mechanism that steals your wages is corporate greed. And I will actually love to hear your take if you disagree with on this podcast. I've never been convinced with the idea that migrants are driving wages down. No, the profit, every ounce of profit is stolen labor.
Yeah.
That migrant has literally nothing to do with the fact that your boss, who got $100,000 bonus, is not paying you well. And I challenge anyone on that. So I love your position on this. I want to pass it right back to you before we get into super chats, because I always want to put the emphasis on what we are doing. Go ahead, take it from the pasta.
Well, I mean, we that chaos down there created is good for the military-industrial complex. I used to say the military-industrial complex. At the end of the day, they don't care who wins the war, they don't care who loses the war. All they care is they have a war. And they can probably fund both sides, sell weapons to both sides. Most of the weapons down in Mexico that come across the border are bought here in the United States. So there's one aspect, and you're absolutely right. We have to be accountable for our own actions. Now, I struggle with the open borders thing, right? I really don't take a position on it. I believe that we should be accountable for our actions some way. So maybe asylum, I guess. And, as an anarchist libertarian, those people out there and stuff like that, they believe in open borders, some of them, because they believe in free movement. They should be able to move wherever you want. Yeah. So there's that concept over there. But at the end of the day, no matter what, whatever we come to, closed border, open border, it's back to square one. Let's fix the problem. If we don't meddle down there, then we won't have to worry. You know what I'm saying? In fact, these corporations are the one that go there and lobby the companies, lobby the government to go overturn these companies. The UFC doesn't stand for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. It stands for the United Fruit Company. And you look in Guatemala, you look at the situation. They had their own president who came into power, socialist president, nationalized the banana. That was their national fruit. And the government, the United States government, convinced them to move this guy and put back in their dictatorship, whatnot. And the UFC went and took back the banana, and eventually became Dole and Chiquita and all these other companies and stuff like that, because it's their resource. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We have to stop meddling. And that's something I like to tell, like I told you before, I tell the MAGA people, those people who are screwing you over here are the same people who are screwing up down over there. Look, Donald Trump trying to whack Nicolas Maduro was the worst thing he could have done for migration. Yes. Right? Destabilize the country even more. He slept all the sanctions on there. He still pressured them. He hired John Bolton, right? All this bullshit. If Donald Trump wanted to decrease immigration, he should have been what do you call himself? The big negotiator, whatever. Go down to Venezuela and strike a deal. Lift the sanctions. Find a way to get them some of the refineries back, and we get some oil in exchange. Go do your art of the deal shit down there with freaking Maduro and stuff like that, if you really. And because then you could have turned around. You can say, we just stabilized the country. We came to the deal. We lift the sanctions. We gave them their money. We got a lot of oil coming from them at a great price. And guess what? Now we're not going to have migration coming this way. He could have said that. And a lot of people could have said that. When we were in Honduras, one of the biggest military bases with U.S. troops is right there in Honduras. So when we asked the Xiomara Castro government, we said, if before you come into power, and this is me and Fiorella asking, part of the government, they're like, what are you going to nationalize when you get power? And they're like, we're not going to nationalize anything. We're just going to open up for competition. It's like, well, that sounds very capitalist to you, but it's like walking on eggshells. You got the devil in the back. When you walk into the living room, the devil's already sitting down there with them, and you got to do business with them. And that's what's going on in Latin America. Same thing with Petro. You got to do business with all these people with the devil in the room. But if you want to really stop migration, you go and cut a deal. You relieve the pressure. You stop destabilizing these countries. And guess what? Less people will come here. Less people will come. And that's how you solve it. And it's a lot less murder and death, because there's a lot of weapons being sold, because the CIA is dirty in Ukraine. They're dirty in Syria. They're dirty in Libya. And they are dirty in Latin America.
So much good things said by you, Pasta. We get to some super chats and then we can wrap up. I just want to add this, just outside the conversation, just something for you guys to think about, because there are a lot of people, and I struggle with the concept of open borders for a very long time as well. The idea that migrants are going to come over here and ruin your life is a fantasy, or a myth, I should say, not fantasy. For a better term, I think it's a myth sold by capitalists so you can distrust your fellow human. So the idea is, we let the border open. All these migrants are gonna come over here and take our jobs. There's not. If you have protectionist programs that in a national jobs guarantee that I believe we should have, if anyone getting paid their fair due, we're not gonna have these job shortages, right? Yeah. And if you're a migrant and you come over here and there's no opportunities because the job's already taken, they're gonna leave.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing that people have that they think migrants are the reason why they have problems. That I just can't square that, because the Walton family is making massive profit. They're massively rich.
Yeah.
How did the immigrants stop the Walton family from paying Walmart workers more? I just don't see that connection. Anyway, that's something for you guys to think about. That wasn't really a debate. I was just floating. I haven't heard the effective argument, and right wingers make it all the time. They say as if it's a fact. Oh, if you have migration, it will hurt your weight. I don't see the connection. I don't see what makes that other than the capitalist structure that I criticize. Agreed. Anyway, I'm nerding out now. Let's get into some super chat. Always fun to talk to you, Pasta. So let's get through these.
Likewise.
Always good conversation, whether you spar or not. Thank you for the 199, Zach. Don't forget, MAGAs loved Trump's bigger stimulus. Well said, Zach. Thank you for the 199. And I think that's the problem. Like, a lot of Americans, and this was shown on both parties. Like, the one I remember most recently is the people there was this guy who was pranking people because he went to a lot of liberals and he was describing Barack Obama's policies, but then he was pretending that Donald Trump did it. And they were like, oh my God. Oh my God, I can't believe that Donald Trump did this thing that Barack Obama did. And I'm sure, because I'm pretty sure a prank been done in the same way, where a lot of Trump's people was tricked to support a Democrat Party position. Because unfortunately, there's so many people in this country that have just been so propaganda. And this is why the two-party duopoly is dangerous. Yeah. Like it makes people instinctively support that side no matter what. Possibly, feel free to take any of these on and interrupt anytime.
No, I listen. Same way. And going back to that whole thing too, as well. It really is a quagmire trying to figure out why people are so scared of the immigration situations, so badly. Like, I don't understand why they concentrate on that, and it really distracts them, But and you're right. At the end of the day, we got to get people away from the two-party duopoly. But that's the game right now. It's like a pendulum. I don't know if you remember when George W. Bush was in office. That's the main reason why I became a Democrat. And that administration was just ridiculous. It was one thing after another thing, invading countries that didn't even get involved in 9/11, and it was like, holy cow! It's the reason why I became a Democrat. Now it seems like they're trying to use the same thing. All these Democrat bad policies. Joe Biden, all the mess ups, and they're trying to persuade people to be Republican now. Now it's like, vote Republican and all your problems will be solved. Like, no, it's not. Don't forget that this is the party who messed up so much crap in the first place. The Patriot Act came from George W. Bush. Help America Vote Act, George W. Bush. The AUMF, George W. Bush. Our civil liberties were stripped under George W. Bush. Big government under George W. Bush. Why do you want the Republican Party back in power? You think Mitch McConnell is closer with Donald Trump or closer with Joe Biden? I think Joe Biden. I think Lindsey Graham and Joe Biden are a lot closer than Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump. And I'm not saying to go vote for Donald Trump, but don't forget, at the end of the day, the two-party duopoly is just one party, especially when it comes to the establishment.
Thank you for the $5, True Rebel Network. I put this up because it's perfect.
Johnny.
That Johnny there? Oh, nice.
Johnny Sue, baby. That's Johnny Sue.
Nice. Appreciate you watching, brother. Divide and conquer. That's what they keep doing. They're going to take your job. That's exactly what it is. Surely it's not your boss that's exploiting your labor. Like, and one thing I want to say on this, what's extremely funny to me, Pasta? Whether you guys agree with my takes on immigration or not, why the hell is the white guy in Wyoming, white dude from South Dakota, like, oh my God, illegal immigration? That, whether you agree with me or not, you cannot say that a lot of illegal immigrants that live in New Mexico, Texas, and California is affecting the quality of life from random people from Wyoming who has this as the number one political issue. They're victims of propaganda.
Because they got them convinced that guy's taking money from a veteran, or that guy's taking money from another program that can be going to the United States. That's what they got. That's the marketing. They're falling for the marketing. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, I think we have the big solution. Let's not create so much illegal immigration in the first place. And let's not call them illegal anyways. That's something that undocumented work, or what type of a person is illegal. But once again, when I talk to them, I use the terms, okay, in this third world country, okay, this illegal immigrant you're so scared of, but they fall for the marketing. They think it's taking away. They use the veteran versus the freaking immigrant situation. They pound it all the time. All the time.
Well said. Thank you. There's two quick super chats from Meter Dreams. Thank you for the 199. Why do you people defend Jackson? He's a grifter. And then he also had this one as well. Please don't defend Jackson. Now you please. Thank you. I don't know how to respond to a super chats. You have to define defend.
Yeah, no shit.
I don't know what you mean by that, but I think for super chats.
Yeah.
Because I think we critiqued them most of this stream. Our brother JB Fine, I saw CJ.
What's up, JB?
Big shout out to JB Sabby. I saw you in the comment section as well. Rome as well. Big shout out to JB Sabby, Rome, and CJ who've been helping me produce it. There he is. He accidentally popped himself in. But CJ also been helping us produce our whole RBN family. We doing great stuff, man. I appreciate our community that we have here. Thank you for the $5. Left is best. BS. What is Rand Paul's take on Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua?
Good question. I can answer that a little bit. He stays a little bit out of the fray. Rand Paul concentrates too much on being an anti-socialist than anything else. Like the Case Against Socialism was his latest book, and even though he's an anti-interventionist, he still somewhat stays in the fray in certain situations. I can tell you this much: his take on Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua ain't as bad as Ron DeSantis, and you better watch out because that guy is a gusano. He wants to celebrate the guy who killed Che Guevara's death. He wants to have that day. I forgot that guy's name, Terrain or something, Tehran. He wants to have a celebration of that dude's day. And he's even said before, the reason why Nicaragua was getting out of hand is because we let Cuba and Venezuela get too far out of control. So I can tell you that much. And the whole Florida cabinet, all the congressmen, the senators down there, gusanos, they want to manufacture consent to go into these countries, Monroe Doctrine style, and they're going to use the case that they're socialist communist governments that are letting the Chinese in. And one day, Rubio said, can you imagine waking up with the Chinese base in their own hemisphere? Pal, you got 1,000 bases around the world. Why don't you look in the mirror? Clean your own house.
Ron DeSantis is exactly what we was warning, meaning like a more competent Trump is going to come. Like, he's terrifying. This dude is banning dissent and people not calling it out as authoritarianism, banning, and he eliminated free speech essentially because he cracked down on BDS. He had a lot of anti-BDS law. That's a crackdown on free speech. Crack down on your right to protest. And people don't see it because Ron DeSantis is such a good messenger of his policies, at least to his audience. Obviously, we see through it immediately. But like as a general orbiter, he's way more efficient than Trump. And this is what we say. I don't know if you're in a position, but me and people on the left say, like, I don't know why you got Trump derangement syndrome. It's only gonna lead to a rise of a greater Trump anyway, because that's just the direction of the empire. And Ron DeSantis seems like he's gonna be the next leader of the empire, and he's terrifying, guys. He's terrifying.
He won't be the next leader; he'll just be the next face, because globalists.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's the global
because I just say he's a better seller because we all know that they all take orders. And that is a good point. They all take orders. Ron DeSantis is gonna be the most efficient puppet in the suit, and he's been doing a great job for the imperialists, right? So last super chat today, at least I've seen.
What up, Zach?
What's up, Zach? Thank you for 999. We've all unique gifts. Jackson Hinkle delivered topics to mainstream with great reception. Instead of team up to offer guidance, trying new tactics, Chat is hell bent on bad faith attacks, judging, and gatekeeping. And in response to that super chat, like I said, I think he's trying this strategy to win MAGA people over. I just don't think it's a good idea. And I think throughout the last quarter of the hour, we laid that out. I don't think any of that is bad faith, but I think you're mostly talking about the comment section. I think that is. You want to take this on? I'll have much.
I just want to say briefly that at the end of the day, I think there's a frustration from some people in independent media that people who actually go on the ground and do a lot of work are getting ignored, and some other, entities like a Jackson Hinkle getting propped up. Now, at the end of the day, I always say as well, number one, as independent media journalists or commentators or whatever you want to call us, Nick, we got to look inward a lot of times and figure out what could we do better. Are we communicating best? Yeah, there are entities that are out there that are suppressing us, shadow banning, and some get it more than others. I can tell you that we get it hard. I got my Election Integrity Matters sticker on, and because we've been talking about elections for a long time. I mean, shit, if you look at us, we're search banned. Like, it's hard to even, like, when you go to Google and you start searching for it, it's hard. So it's I mean, some people get it harder than others, but it's still, at the end of the day, you have to work on yourself and communicate better. But when it comes to certain issues, I see a lot of people calling them out on this one, saying this is kind of bullshit. And once again, is like I said before, the people on the ground, in particular, two women, Vanessa Beeley and Eva Bartlett, who were on the morning show today. She's in Syria, Vanessa Beeley. Eva Bartlett's been going into the Donbass showing this stuff, showing what the Azov battalion and Ukrainian missiles are doing. And I think that a lot of people in independent media, instead of just boasting up some of the people out there that they are close with and they're friends with and got a good audience, got to find a way to get these journalists who are actually on the ground and elevate their voices. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes in. But you've been doing this for a while. It's always hate, no matter what. What are you gonna do? I choose to look at people and the beautiful things they do and not look at the negative. But I don't hold it against some people for some of their opinions, man. Yeah,
I think it's more persuasive to just take someone at face value and then debunk their points. Like I see a lot of people with this idea from the earlier super chat. A lot of people say, "Oh, Jackson just saying MAGA communism because you want to grift the right," which I'm not ruling that out. But I think it's more effective instead of just saying, "Oh, he's a grifter. Oh, he don't operate in good faith." I actually think that's less persuasive. Like if you agree with Jackson and then you just hear me say, "Oh, I think he's a grifter," you can immediately turn that out. So instead of doing that, I just say, "Okay, let me approach my critique as if Jackson really believes what he's saying, and this is why I think it's wrong." I think that's most effective, even if you believe he's a grifter.
Yeah.
So we got three super chats that came super last. Only last two. So any more super chats after this two, not gonna be read. So thank you for the $5. Ruthless criticism. You find me MAGA that support communism, and we don't need. Sorry, let me read it. You find me MAGA that support communism, and we don't need hashtag. Oh, I see what you said. I misread it. So he's saying that if you find me someone who is MAGA that support communism, it's not MAGA communism, just communism. That's good. That's
good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Thank you for that ruthless criticism.
Here he goes. More ideologues. Read theory. Here we go.
Read Lenin. It's capitalists, especially bankers, who are pushing empire and the government. Goldman Sachs on how many presidents' cabinets.
He's talking about Obama, the letter going to Obama said this is who we got to pick for his cabinet, and then Trump, a lot of the same swamp creatures, and Joe Biden, same swamp creatures, So Goldman Sachs, all these hedge funds, all Wall Street, they control all the finance cabinets anyways. So they're making the policy and writing the policy.
Did Steve Bannon come from Goldman Sachs? Because that's am I right on that? Because I used to I mock Trump supporters on that as well. Because once again, Trump accurately called out Hillary Clinton for being a Goldman Sachs whore, but Donald Trump did the same thing, and they're quiet. These are just things I bring up to people who still like Trump. Like, all right, this is why he betrayed you. Not that he supports MAGA communism. And
Mnuchin was like Mnuchin. You said it earlier. Steve Mnuchin came right from Wall Street.
Yeah. Steve Mnuchin, Steve Bannon. So that's, I think, probably the most scathing critique. Like when you hear that OAN or interview where Jackson says that the MAGA movement hijacked. No, the MAGA movement never existed. At no point when you hire Steve Mnuchin, the guy that you guys claim the MAGA movement stole from, when he hires the swamp, the movement never existed, right? So anyway, thank you for staying on. Thank you for sticking in there with me, Pasta. Always good to have the conversations.
Yeah.
Any shout outs, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I do want to read something actually, because you opened up the show. We're talking about Martin Luther King Jr., but I heard one of my favorite albums by Mos Def, and one of the songs, one of my favorite Malcolm X quotes, and he says, in my opinion, the young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever there is, you're living in a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time where there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and now there has to be a change, and I am, for one, willing to work with anybody who will get rid of this misused power. So one of my favorite Malcolm X quotes, I just want to kind of read that today when you were playing Martin Luther King. I love that quote because it really does talk about, that bigger power. I think that Fred Hampton recognized that, there's this big entity out there that's controlling things. They're going overseas, the imperialists. The imperialists is the problem. Those are the people who are running things, and we have to change this people in power, because at the end of the day, the class issue is so important. There's so many people starving in the streets right now. White people, black people, brown people, everybody, you know what I'm saying? And I think it's time for us to unite in true solidarity behind a workers' movement and really overturn the powers that be. Because right at the end of the day, they don't care about us, and we shouldn't care about them. We need to get rid of them.
Well said, Pastor. Make sure you guys check out the Convo Couch. And once again, we got a lot of great stuff. I'm doing a dual stream with Black Power Media tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to talk about political prisoners. It's going to be a dual stream. So I love the work that Kamu and Two Black does when it talk about political prisoners. A lot of people, that's one of the issues. I don't know, you guys cover that a lot. It's one of the things that a lot of people, even the independent media, just let slip through the cracks. So That's what we have in terms of content tomorrow. On Thursday, our interview with Bad Faith is going to drop, we think. So that's going to be super interesting. I'll tell you, once that drop is going to lead to a lot of discourse. I'll tell you that right now because we did not hold back. We did not hold back. So, and also I'm going to be on the Hill Rising on Thursday because we're going to talk about the same thing because they want to bring me on so we can discuss the root causes of the immigration crisis.
Yeah.
And I'm going to explain to these people that it's our fault. So that's coming up with RBN. We got lots of good stuff coming on. If you enjoy this, please like, share, subscribe.
Hey Nick, one last thing, if I can just plug, we're going to Brazil on Friday. Fee's flying out from Moscow. I'm flying out from Florida. We're heading our way down south to Brazil. They have a historic election, guys. Lula da Silva, who was jailed by the help of the State Department and locked on up, couldn't run in the last election, lost. Obviously couldn't run, and Bolsonaro took power. Now Bolsonaro is getting a lot of support from MAGA folk out here because of his protocols on the vaccine and whatnot, and also that he joined BRICS and struck a deal for some diesel with Putin coming out of the BRICS convention last time. So he's getting some support out there. However, there's a lot of poverty going. A lot of people want Lula back in power. So we're going down there. And if anybody can help, they can go to givesendgo.com / the Combo Couch Brazil with a Z, not an S. I spelled it the gringo way. Next time I got yelled at for that. I better change it next time. If you go to givesendgo.com / the Combo Couch Brazil, help us out. $5, $10, $2. It's an expensive trip, and we can really use your help on this one.
Well said. And once again, I'm super jealous that you guys can do stuff like that's.
You can come with us.
That's real. That's really important.
Venezuela, Cuba next year. Come with us, Nick. We always meet the communist parties out there. We meet the regular folk who don't like the Communist Party out there. We meet everybody. We talk to everybody there. It's amazing. And if you want to come on this next year, when the delegations come up, I'll throw RBN's name out there. We should go down there, a whole crew, and have a good time, man. Really, I mean, it's awesome to get in the streets with the people. That's why I believe in national sovereignty more than everything. I believe in national sovereignty in the United States. I believe in national sovereignty down there. People have a right to choose their own leaders. Let's go, baby. Let's go hit Venezuela up. Let's do it.
Yeah, don't laugh at me, but I never left the country. Never left the country. And I had dreams of grandeur. I talked to CJ Rome about this. I actually said it on the channel before. Like, I only been a citizen journalist for about a year and a half. Like, I definitely see myself as we continue to evolve. I want to do a lot of what you guys do as well. Travel overseas.
Yeah.
I like what Ben Norton does, traveling overseas as well. That's the future of my citizen journalist career. And I'm not quite there yet in terms of resources and funds. But
you start with the passport. Nick, I'm 49 years old. I'm gonna be 50. I got my first passport at 47. I ain't gone nowhere. And just like you, I was just like 1.5, 2 years. I'm like, I gotta get out. I gotta go see this. I can't be an anti-imperialist if I'm staying here right now. I gotta get out. I went library, got it done. Do what you got to do. Get that passport and then go. There's delegations. You can go see the work. You can go see the people, and they'll keep on inviting you, bringing back. I get invitations to go to Nicaragua all the time now. You know what I'm saying? I got to shake Daniel Ortega's hand. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. When I went to Honduras, we went with the Libre Party. We sat down in the office. Manuel Zelaya comes walking in the door to do a little private interview with 20 of us there. I mean, you just got to do it. And it just starts. Just go get that passport, Nick, and the rest of it will come into play. 47 first passport. 47.
So that's the future of my reporting on RBN. Like I said, we still, like a lot of people know, we still very young. Like, we literally turned 1 year in April this year. So that's stuff you're gonna see in the future if I can ever get that done. So thank you guys for watching on Pop You Out Here Pasta. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys check out my show on Revolutionary Discourse. We got a lot of great content coming you guys' way. So thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great night. Have a good one, guys.